Hi guys, it's Hannah here. Today I'm going to be reading chapter 9 of The Lady Vanishes, but before then I wanted to talk a bit about mental health. So as you can see, I'm in my pyjamas. I'm rocking the pyjama look a lot at the moment. It's actually 8 o'clock in the morning, which in this kind of, I've been furloughed for like a week now and I wouldn't usually be up at this time. Over the past week I've kind of got into a routine of not getting up this early. But I haven't been sleeping much at all the past couple of nights. As you can see, I've got like a massive spot just really enjoying itself on my face. And yeah, I think partly it's got due to my kind of body positivity issues. I put on quite a bit of weight in a very short space of time. I realise it's been like 4 weeks now. Not having left the village because quarantining, we started a bit early because my dad is part of the vulnerable category, and yeah, I've been kind of comfort eating quite a lot, and I follow quite a few body positivity accounts. So Body Posy Panda, I think is great. Jess McGann, who I think is a really wonderful kind of advocate for loving yourself and being kind to yourself and loving yourself at any size. And she really is a testament to you can be beautiful and smart and kind, regardless of your weight. But that's been kind of just flaring up some body issues that I have, and there's a lot of clothes that I can't actually fit into at the moment. So with these videos I'm like, oh, I'd love to wear this or wear that, or yeah, and I can't. I know, like, I know in comparison to you know, all the incredible work that the NHS are doing and the life-saving work, and all the carers who are doing really vital, important work, and people who are just really any work that's really vital or essential at this moment. You know, I realise I'm privileged. I have a garden, I'm out here sitting in it, so I'm kind of all aware of that, but that doesn't stop me feeling a bit crap. Yeah, and the last couple of days have been a bit like that for me. I'm getting kind of quite blinkered as well, because I'm kind of now used to not leaving, and I'm used to not really talking to many people. It's been lovely kind of catching up with friends on house party and Zoom and other things, but because I'm not having, it's not kind of a regular thing that when I was at work, I notice I get quite anxious before I kind of, even, you know, these wonderful people, really lovely friends, but when I just prior to the calls, I get myself into a kind of a little bit of an anxious state, which I think is just because talking to anybody really. So yeah, and I've been getting like 2 hours sleep a night, not much sleep at all, so I'm a bit knackered. And then I feel tired, and then I don't do much, and then I feel useless. It's like this cycle. And then I'm eating more because it's comforting, and because I feel like it will give me energy. And yeah, and I know I'm trying to, you know, accept myself at whatever size, but it's just not really. It's being a bit difficult at the moment. I have to say, I did have this lovely, so Jess McGann, who I mentioned before, this lovely care package from her, which had these like CBD gummies in, which are just really tasty and also like good for calming, and some nail polish, which I did, and some like shimmer cream, and that was really, really lovely to have that. Yeah, I was very fortunate. It's a really nice thing. So I've been enjoying that, so that's really great. And yeah, it's been lovely actually, looking on the positive side, like to spend more time with my family and my sister who's not here as much. Usually she's a travel photographer, to have her here as well has been really lovely. And I'm trying to stay outside as much as I can, because I've learned from various kind of like meditation retreats that I've been on and nature mindfulness activities that actually when you don't know what to do, I learned this great thing from Lucy Chan, who's one of the very wise woman, a leader, who runs a therapist, I believe. I'm not sure exactly what to call her title, but she encompasses all of that. She's an incredible person. She told me that when I'm not really sure what to do and I'm really anxious, or I'm kind of so many different things I could be getting on with, or there aren't, and I'm not really sure, that just to sit in nature, and just to pick something to watch and observe is really helpful. So that's what I've been trying to do in my garden. So kind of find a spot. There's some really beautiful, so I've been watching the river quite a bit, with ducks going by. I was actually going to get back on my flamingo yesterday because it was so hot, and it really does lift your mood. But I saw this, it was actually quite beautiful but quite disturbing as well. This water snake just really like sinuously, beautifully gliding through the water, which I watched. But after that I was like, there is no way in hell I'm getting in the water today. So yeah, that's just kind of an update on what I am. I hope you're kind of all doing okay, as best as you can, practicing self-care and looking after yourself, and try not to worry about the little things. Like, I'm really trying to think, like, in the grand scheme of things, my weight's not an issue, and it shouldn't ever be an issue, and to really kind of focus on the positivity, the fact that, you know, my daddy's well, with our self-isolation is really working, and I think it's working for a lot of people. I try not to watch the news more than once a day, and I think just seeing the death toll and hearing people's stories, I think it's really important to hear them, and it's really important to know kind of what's going on, and to find a bit more about where the government are and what they're working on, you know, when the vaccines will be available, all these kind of various things, but not to watch it too much. I found my dad doing this as well, and I've tried to be like, let's put something else on, not to fixate on it, because that's not helpful to anyone. So yes, anyway, this is meant to be my reading chapter 9 of The Lady Vanishes, so I am going to do that. I know I said this in many videos, but reading I'm finding really comforting, just being a part of somewhere different, where this isn't going on, to explore somewhere different with people that it's not happening to, and to be able to be a part of that world, but not obviously kind of like to have to engage or talk. And obviously I'm talking on here, but I found talking a bit difficult, and you don't want to sort of, I don't want to kind of go on about how I'm feeling too much, because like I do, in comparison to a lot of other people who have maybe lost loved ones, or they're worried about losing loved ones who have caught coronavirus, or, you know, their partner's done a 14-day 12-hour shift to the NHS. Like, it's not that, it's obviously nowhere near what I'm going through that at all, but I also don't want to minimise that this is how I feel. This is how I felt the past couple of days. So yeah, anyway, let's get back to Ethelina White. And as I was saying, I found books and nature, and talking to people that I love and like a lot. Those are kind of the three things. And food. Like, my mum made this amazing chocolate cake, which is kind of mind-blowing, which I've been having as well. And yeah, those are kind of all the things that are keeping me sustained and kind of lifting my mood, because I've been having a lot of my anxiety, some like really dark thoughts about death, and just about people I love dying and not being able to help them. So I'm trying not to, that's not helpful to think about, so I'm trying not to. So that's why it might sound a bit weird, but actually reading a 1930s crime novel where there is the threat of impending doom, you might think seems like a weird choice in comparison to the comforting children's reads story I did. But actually, having a woman like Iris Carr, who, yes, she's kind of, and obviously as the book progresses we'll learn more about that we'll talk more about that, but who is in this situation that is getting worse, but she's able to do something about it. Like, she's an active participant, she is working to do something. And I think what's difficult I've found in this crisis is that, like, the thing you can do is you can, you know, all the shopping that comes in this house, clean, be really diligent about washing your hands, really diligent about keeping social distancing, even just like going for a walk around the village, which I'm kind of doing once a day, kind of making sure, well, walking over the field, not really through the village. And if I see anybody, keep that social distance, and but that's all you can do. Like, I can't, you know, go be an NHS volunteer because my dad, I can't do, that's why I'm kind of doing my books. I've been doing some painting, but those aren't really things that I can, the books and the painting aren't things that I can do to help people. So, like, kind of seeing Iris being able to, you get what I'm saying, hopefully, at this 8 o'clock morning. I'm not best first thing in the morning, as you could probably tell from this video. But yeah, seeing her actually being an active participant and helping and being able to do something for Miss Froy, it's actually, I find, really comforting. And I've read it before as well, so I kind of know where the plot is going to go. So yeah, anyway, that's what I kind of quite like. Although I have been reading quite a few crime novels that I haven't read before, which I'm going to do more kind of reviews of, which you don't know, which are quite thrilling as well. Yeah. Get the adrenaline pumping. Okay, so chapter 9. So in the last chapter, chapter 8 that I read, so Iris Carr on the train, she's met Miss Froy, she's met the Baroness and the other people in the carriage who are in the carriage with Miss Froy. Miss Froy and her have gone to have some tea in the carriage, and Miss Froy's been talking a bit about who she's got at home, waiting for her sock, her dog, her parents, how she knows the Baroness as her brother, as her former employer, and she's been working abroad for quite a while. And so yeah, so this is now chapter 9 of the Daily Vanishes, and it's called Compatriots. And now, said Miss Froy, I suppose we'd better go back to our carriage and make room for others. The waiter, who was both a judge of character and an opportunist, presented the bill to Iris. Unable to decipher the sprawling numerals, she laid down a note and rose from her seat. Aren't you waiting for your change? Asked Miss Froy. When Iris explained that she was leaving a tip, she gasped. But it's absurd. Besides, they've already charged their percentage on the bill. As I'm more familiar with the currency, hadn't I better settle up for everything? I'll keep an account and we can get straight at our journey's end. The incident was fresh evidence of the smooth working of the protective square system. Although Iris was travelling alone, a competent courier had presented herself to rid her of all responsibilities and worries. She's decent, although a crashing bore, she decided as she followed Miss Froy down the swaying restaurant car. She noticed that the Mrs. Flood Porter, who had not finished their leisurely tea, took no notice of herself, but looked exclusively at her companion. Miss Froy returned Miss Rose's stare with frank interest. Those people are English, she whispered to Iris, not knowing that they had met before. They're part of an England that is passing away. Well-bred, privileged people who live in big houses and don't spend their income. I'm rather sorry they're dying out. Why? Asked Iris. Because although I'm a worker myself, I feel that nice, leisured people stand for much that is good. Tradition, charity, national prestige. They may not think you're their equal, but their sense of justice sees that you get equal rights. Iris said nothing, although she admitted to herself that while they were at the hotel, the Mrs. Flood Porter were more considerate of person and property than her own friends. When they made their long and shaky pilgrimage through the train, she was amazed by Miss Froy's youthful spirits. Her laugh rang out wherever she was, whenever she was bumped against other passengers, or was forced by a lurch of the engine to clutch a rail. After they'd pushed their way to a clearer passage, she lingered to peep through the windows of the reserved compartments. One of these specially arrested her attention, and she invited Iris to share her view. Do have a peek, she urged. There's a glorious couple, just like film stars come to life. Iris was feeling too jaded to be interested in anything but a railway collision. But as she squeezed her way past Miss Froy, she glanced mechanically through the glass and recognised the bridal pair from the hotel. Even within the limits of the narrow even within the limits of the narrow coupe, the Todhunters had managed to suggest their special atmosphere of opulence and exclusion. The bride wore the kind of elaborate travelling costume which is worn only on journeys inside a film studio, and had assembled a drift of luxury possessions. Fancy, thought Miss Froy. They've got hot house fruit with their tea, grapes and nectarines. He's looking at her with his soul in his eyes, but I can only see her profile. It's just like a beautiful statue. Oh, lady, please turn your head. Her wish was granted, for at that moment Mrs. Todhunter chanced to glance towards the window. She frowned when she saw Miss Froy and spoke to her husband, who rose instantly and pulled down the blind. Although she was not implicated, Iris felt ashamed of the incident, but Miss Froy only bubbled with amusement. He'll know me again, she said. He looked at me as if he'd like to annihilate me. Quite natural. I was the world, and he wants to forget the world, because he's in paradise. It must be wonderful to be exclusively in love. They may not be married, remarked Iris. Anyone can buy a wedding ring. You mean guilty love? Oh no, they're too glorious. What name did they register under? Todhunter. Then they are married. I'm so glad. If it was an irregular affair, they would have signed Brown or Smith. It's always done. As she listened to the gush of words behind her, Iris was again perplexed by the discrepancy between Miss Froy's personality and her appearance. It was as though a dryad were imprisoned within the tree trunk of a withered spinster. When they reached the end of the corridor, a morbid impulse made her glance towards the carriage which held the invalid. She caught a glimpse of a rigid form and a face hidden by its mash of adhesions before she looked quickly away to avoid the eyes of the doctor. They frightened her because of their suggestion of baleful hypnotic force. She knew that they would be powerless to affect her in ordinary circumstances, but she was beginning to feel heady and unreal, as though she were in a dream where every emotion is intensified. In all probability, this condition was a consequent symptom of her sunstroke, and was due partly to her struggle to hold out until she could collapse safely at her journey's end. Oh, sorry, just the bird song just then, it's really gone very loud. It's beautiful. I hope you can hope that's picking up on camera well. Sorry, anyway. Was a symptom of her sunstroke and was due partly to her struggle to hold out until she could collapse safely at her journey's end. She was directing her willpower towards one aim only, and therefore draining herself of energy. As a result, she was susceptible to imaginary antagonism. When she caught sight of a blur of faces inside the gloom of her carriage, she shrank back. I've realised doing these videos that SH, or just S, are quite difficult for me. Because my sister pointed out in, I think it was the chapter 7 video, and I don't think I noticed, or I was trying to keep my cool. I said like shat, I meant to say sat, and then I was saying shat, and Beth was like, oh my god, that's hilarious, did you not realise you'd done that? And I was like, I did, but I just tried to carry on, and I've just had a bumble with the SH again. Okay. When she caught sight of a blur of faces inside the gloom of her carriage, she shrank back, unwilling to enter. Oh god, there's another SH. She received unexpected support from Miss Froy, who seemed to divine her reluctance. Don't let sit mum like charity children any longer, she whispered. Even if I am under an obligation to the Baroness, I'm going to remember that these people are only foreigners. Oh, another SH. They shan't impress me, we're English. Although the reminder was patriotism reduced to its lowest term of jingoism, it braced Iris to enter the compartment with a touch of her old abandon. Precaution forgotten, she lit a cigarette without a glance at the other passengers. Have you travelled much? Asked Miss Froy. Only in Europe, was the regretful reply. Mater doesn't really like me going so far from home, but she holds the theory that the younger generation must not be denied their freedom. Still, I've promised to stick to Europe, although whenever I'm near a boundary, I just ache to hop over the line to Asia. Is your mother very old? No, she's 80 years young, a real sport with the spirit of the modern girl. Pater is 77. He never let her know he was younger than she, but it leaked out when he had to retire at 65. Poor Mater was terribly upset. She said, "You have made me feel a cradle snatcher. Oh, I can't believe I'm really going to see them again soon." As she listened, Iris watched the smoke curling up from her cigarette. Occasionally she saw a vague little puckered face swaying amid the haze, like an unsuccessful attempt at television. Out of gratitude for services rendered and still to come, she tried to appreciate the old parents, but she grew very bored by the family saga. She learned that Peter was tall and thin and looked classical, while Meta was short and stout but dignified. Apparently Peter had unquenchable ardour and energy, for at the age of 70 he began to learn Hebrew. He's made a detailed timetable for every month of his life up to 90, explained Miss Froy. That's what comes of being a schoolmaster. Now Meta is passionately fond of novels, loves ones, you know. She makes a long bus journey every week to change her library book, but she says she can't imagine them properly unless she makes me the heroine. I'm sure you had a marvellous time, said Iris. Miss Froy resented the attempt to be tactful. Haven't had, she declared. Peter was a parson before he kept a school, and his curate always proposed to me. I expect this because I have fair curly hair. That's never... Having fair curly hair has never been a prerequisite to having lots of curates proposing to you. Anyway, and I still have the excitement and hope of the eternal quest. I never forget that a little boy is born for every little girl, and even if we haven't met yet, we are both growing old together, and if we're fated to meet, we shall. I always thought sceptically of the mature men who refused to adhere to the calendar, as she listened with rising resentment. She wanted quiet, but Miss Froy's voice went on and on like the unreeling of an endless talking picture. Presently, however, Miss Froy recaptured her interest, for she began to talk of languages. I speak 10, including English, she said. At first, when you're in a strange country, you can't understand one word, and you feel like a puppy thrown into a pond. You flounder and struggle, so unless you want to drown, you've simply got to pick it up. By the end of the year, you're as fluent as a native, but I always insist on staying a second year for the sake of idiomatic polish. I expect foreigners to speak English, declared Iris. When you're off the map, they may not, and then you might find yourself in a terrible fix. Shall I tell you a true story? Without waiting for encouragement, Miss Froy span a yarn which was not calculated to cool Iris's inflamed nerves. It was all very vague and anonymous, but the actual horror was stark. A certain woman had been certified as insane, but owing to a blunder, the ambulance went to the wrong house and forcibly took away an Englishwoman who did not understand a word of the language or of her destination. In her indignation and horror at finding herself in a private asylum, she became so vehement and violent that she was kept at first under the influence of drugs. When the mistake was found out, the doctor, who was a most unscrupulous character, was afraid to admit it. At the time he was in financial difficulties and he feared it might ruin his reputation, so he planned to detain the Englishwoman until he could release her as officially cured. But she couldn't know she wasn't in for life, explained Miss Froy, working at the agony. The horror of it would probably have driven her really insane, only a nurse exposed the doctor's plot out of revenge. But can you imagine the awful position of that poor Englishwoman, trapped with no one to make inquiries about her, or even to know she had disappeared, for she was merely a friendless foreigner, staying a night here and a night there at some pension. I'm trying to pronounce that properly, but spectacularly failed. She didn't understand a word she couldn't explain. Please stop, broke in Iris. I can imagine it all vividly, but would you mind if we stopped talking? Oh, certainly, aren't you well? It's difficult to be sure with your sunburn, but I thought you looked green once or twice. I'm very fit, thanks, but my head aches a bit. I've just had a touch of sunstroke. Sunstroke? When? Knowing that Miss Froy's curiosity had to be appeased, Iris gave a brief account of her attack. As she did so, she glanced round the carriage. It was evident from the blank faces that, with one exception, the passengers did not understand English. Iris could not be certain about the Baroness. She had the slightly stupid expression of an autocrat who had acquired power through birth and not enterprise. Yet there was a gleam of intelligence in her eyes that betrayed secret interest in the story. "Oh, you poor soul," cried Miss Froy, who overflowed with sympathy. "Why didn't you stop me chattering before? I'll give you some aspirin." Although she hated any fuss, it was a relief to Iris when she was able to sit back in her corner while Miss Froy hunted among the contents of her bag. "I don't think you'd better have dinner in the restaurant car," she decided. "I'll bring you something here later. Now swallow these tablets and then try to get a little nap." After Iris had closed her eyes, she could still hear Miss Froy fluttering about her like a fussy little bird on guard. It gave her a curious sense of protection, while the carriage was so warm that she soon became pleasantly drowsy. As the drug began to take effect, her thoughts grew jumbled, while her head kept jerking forward. Presently she lost consciousness of place as she felt herself moving onward with the motion of the train as though she were riding. Sometimes she took offence when the sleep seemed to leap under her, leaving her suspended in the air. Clankety clankety clank, on and on. She kept moving steadily upwards. Clankety clankety clank. Then the rhythm of the train changed, and she seemed to be sliding backwards down a long slope. Click, click, click. The wheels rattled over the rails with the sound of castanets. She was sinking deeper and deeper, while the carriage vibrated like the throbbing of an airplane. It was bearing her away, sweeping her outside the carriage to the edge of a drop. With a violent start she opened her eyes. Her heart was leaping as though she had actually fallen from a height. At first she wondered where she was. Then as she gradually recognised her surroundings, she found that she was staring at the Baroness. In slight confusion she looked away quickly to the opposite seat. To her surprise, Miss Foy's place was empty. End of chapter 9. So chapter 9 is a really important chapter. It's where you kind of see the dynamics between Miss Foy and Iris Carr, and it definitely obviously stands up to the Bechdel test of having two female characters talking together about something that isn't men, basically. And you get the kind of difference of their personalities. And I always imagine Ethelina White being in her 50s writing that. You get that sense of that young spirit of Iris Carr, who's kind of a little bit dismissive of Miss Foy as being older. She talks about in there about that she's kind of like a dryad in a gnarled tree trunk. How she kind of sees Miss Foy as this kind of older woman, but who has, and that chapter and her dialogue, Miss Foy really shows a real sense of positivity, a real sense of purpose, a real energy, you know, learning those languages, travelling a lot, being really inspired and interested in new places and new people, and always being curious, which I really love. And you get that, and at the end, you know, Iris says she feels that sense of protection with her. And then Miss Foy at the very end of that chapter is not in the carriage anymore. And there's quite a lot of, I don't want to spoil things, but there's quite a lot of foreshadowing in that chapter when she talks about people recognising her or people being supportive of her. And we'll see if that rings true, and that idea of, you know, you need to know languages because of what could happen to you, and the story of that English woman who ended up in a mental asylum. Yeah, that's why I kind of love going back and rereading books a lot, because, and Ethelina White is a really great example of that, of those kind of layers and those things you notice on second, third, fourth, fifth, after many readings. So yeah, really great chapter, and yeah, we'll see what happens. So that was The Lady Vanishes chapter 9. I apologise for rambling on for quite a long time. It's getting up to 30 minutes. I'll try and edit this down and cut some of those bits out. But yeah, I hope these videos are in some way enjoyable for you, and you're kind of you're enjoying listening to the chapter, or discovering more of Ethelina White's work, because she has written some incredible pieces. And yeah, I hope you're all following your government guidelines and staying as safe and looking after yourself, but your mental health as well. And if you can, so in England we allow this kind of one designated outside walk a day, kind of near where you live. So I hope if you are in England, you're getting a chance to do that, or you're getting a chance for some fresh air, or even to look out the window at nature wherever you are. And yeah, I am finding these videos really therapeutic, and it's really good to be able to share something, to share some kind of creative vision, however creative this is. But yeah, to kind of share and to put my voice out there, I'm finding really useful, and to document this time, I think, for me really is helpful. So yeah, anyway, I'm gonna go and leave you now. Yeah, and I hope you have a good time, and yeah, I will catch you soon. I'm going to carry on recording chapter Lady Vanishes and doing some other book recommendations. I really enjoyed doing the book about comforting children's reads and kind of showcasing what I've been reading at the moment, and yeah, I will do kind of more things like that as well as reading the chapters. So take care. Oh, my friend Olivia told me at the end of this video I should do that whole YouTuber thing of, if you like this video, please click the thumbs up and subscribe. So there we are. Yeah, take care, look after yourself, check in with your friends, check in with your family, find ways to support people, or charities that are struggling if you can. I've been trying to be conscious of making donations, and supporting how I can. So yes, please do that, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye guys, bye.